Welcome to Ofofo Studio. My guest for today is Michael Soule. Michael is the National Director at Sentinel. Sentinel is a leading IT and security services provider out in the US. Is that right, Michael?
That's correct. Spot on.
All right, welcome to the show, man.
Good to be here. Thanks for
Yeah,
having
Michael,
me.
if you could just for the viewers and the listeners, if you can just tell them briefly what is it that you do.
At Sentinel, my role focuses on our public cloud practices. I have peers in security, collaboration, and many other disciplines. My team focuses a lot on artificial intelligence. That's been a very big topic late,
Mhm.
and really just focused on trying to enable our customers with modern technology and making sure that they're able to be always leading.
Right. So, what do you think are some of the key problems that exist in ID and security right now?
I think it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
There's something new every day, whether you watch news, Reddit, whether you go on to threat intelligence feeds. It's overwhelming. It's hard to know what to pay attention to, how to make it actionable, and
Yeah,
it's challenging to be able to do that consistently and regularly enough to actually make sure that you are protected and secure.
absolutely, man. But let me put it this way: what are some of the problems that you get approached with at Sentinel? What do customers? What are your inquiries all about? If they come to you, what do they come with?
Yeah, it really spans the gamut, but one of the things that has been most recent, especially around security, is I have this cloud software, this software as a service platform,
Hmm.
and there's the shared responsibility model. So I know I'm supposed to be securing it. How?
Right.
What? How do I secure that, and what should I secure in that? Where is my boundary in shared responsibility? And that's a big topic of late that clients are really trying to understand and really trying to make sure that they're doing their due diligence and securing that properly. Because most of these platforms, whether it's Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, these platforms are essentially how you're running most of your business today.
Right. Okay, let's say I have a business. It's not a very big business, but I have just started using tech to augment or support some of my functions. Right. What are some things that I need to take care of from day zero? What are some things that the basics that I need to basic fundamentals that I need to have in place according to you? Hmm. Mm. Mm. Right. Hmm. Hmm. Makes sense. So when companies come to you for with their problems, what are some things that you check for immediately? Like, is this in place? Is that in place?
Yeah, oftentimes like multiple factor authentication. So MFA, making sure that every user is required to use MFA, especially if you're adding additional friction. So like with
Right.
Microsoft, they support risk-based conditional access. So
Hmm.
if the user session seems to be in a more risky state, we're
Hmm.
going to add more friction into that sign-on event. We want to
Right.
make sure that that user is secure. So things of that nature are really valuable. Multiple factor authentication is really valuable.
Got it. So what are some variables or what are things that make it risky? How do you measure that?
Yeah, it could be location. So impossible travels, like the simplest example. Hey, I logged in from Chicago and now 2 hours later I'm in Dubai. Wait,
Right.
that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So things of that nature. Impossible travel is a good one. Unknown device. So this is the
Right.
first time I'm using this device. I've never logged into it before.
Hmm.
Maybe we should make sure that you MFA this time. Things of that
Yeah.
nature. Just inconsistencies, I would say, are indicators of risk.
Okay. And let's say it's an even more evolved company, right? I mean, they've got
Hmm.
the basics in place, but they come to you with either specific asks, or if they're talking to a customer and the customer asks them to have like a good security posture in place, and they don't know what that means. So when they come to you,
Hmm.
what do you say?
Yeah, definitely the most common scenario of late, especially on the artificial intelligence side, but even from
Hmm.
a regulatory perspective,
Hmm.
is data loss prevention, data
Yeah.
governance. What does that mean? How do I start labeling my data? How do I then be able to report on where it's used and how it's used? And then how do I ultimately, hopefully, be able to enforce any of my policy in my technical solutions based on those classifications? And
Right.
that's something that's been a very big area of research. And the NIST, uh, National Institute of Science and Technology, NIST is working. They have a working group currently on data classifications. They should have a draft of the from their RFC process coming out soon about data classification processes. And so it's still relatively new. Even
Yeah.
though data governance is something we've been dealing with for decades, we're just
Right.
now starting to get some open standards about it.
Absolutely. Talking about research, man, you've
Hmm.
got an impressive amount of publications out there. Like so many papers published. So, what is the motivation behind that? I mean, is it to find things that are unknown, or bring out patterns that exist but people cannot see?
I think it's a lot of just being able to have a starting point of communication. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of work I do that, sure, it may sound accurate, it may apply correctly in the environments I've been in,
Mm-hmm.
but as soon as I go into someone else's environment, all
Yeah.
assumptions are broken and I could be
Right.
entirely wrong.
Yeah.
So putting it out there, sharing it with others, and then using that as a starting point for conversation, because it's until it's empirically tested, we aren't certain if we're right or we just made
Absolutely.
some good assumptions.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like, when did this start, Michael? I mean, have you been this kind of guy lately, or did it start when you were really young?
I'd probably say with technology, it's more of late, like the last probably 6 to 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
where I focused on trying to be more open and community focused with technology.
Right.
Prior to that, though, I mean, it was there. It was just less intentional. It
Yeah.
was interacting on forums. It was having group IRC chats. It was actually having communication, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't as intentional of, hey, this is why I'm sharing this. This is why I'm trying to collaborate.
When was the first time that happened? That you were like, I need a starting point for this. This needs to have a conversation around.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think probably the best example that really kicked that off was a lot of this security stuff. So, like in my background, I have a security background, but I came from IT and information systems and the business side. And so, security is so massive
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there's so much I don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where, as my career started to force me more down the security path, and I had to start talking to more people in security,
Mm-hmm.
the more I realized there's just so many roles, there's so many perspectives, there's so many requirements that I haven't experienced. And
Right.
I'd say the starting point for all that was I joined Sentinel probably about, gosh, 8 years ago now. And one of the reasons I left my prior employer in healthcare was we were going through another system change. It was going to be another pretty standard project. Like major electronic medical record projects aren't simple by any
No,
stretch,
no, not at all.
but they're consistent. You know what
Right.
you're going to do. And it was sort of like, well, I don't necessarily want to be bored.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came to an environment where I'm going to see hundreds of customer environments. I'm going to see so many different controls and requirement and just different architectures that I may never have had exposure to being at a single entity.
Hmm.
That now that really sort of opened the door of, yeah, I don't know even half of what I thought I did.
That's something that anyone, like any good researcher says that, like all of them that I've met actually so far. So
Yep.
yeah, Michael, what was your first job, man? You said like you were into healthcare before this.
Yeah, so
Was that how you started? Okay.
that was that was my job during college. So I went full time for my undergrad, and I worked for a healthcare system pretty
Hmm.
much full time during that.
Hmm.
Prior to that, I worked for the education system in Nevada, and so the state of Nevada higher education system in a few different roles, um, through K-12 and through the university or the community college. And so both of those scenarios, and then prior to that, I did odd jobs. Like I had my mom had a travel agencies in the early 2000s, and I helped her like set up. They use Sabre and Apollo, so like
Nice.
AS400. So like I was dealing with tech for a long time, and then
Hmm.
official job wise, yeah, it started late high school, early college, and throughout.
Got it. So you started out, you know, experimenting with tech, and then you
Hmm.
understood that you could have actual jobs where you'd be paid for doing that. Then you got
Exactly.
into health. In healthcare, you came across an example for security, and then you thought that maybe I need to see more of this, and
Yep.
then you jumped into Sentinel.
Yeah.
It's
You
amazing,
you said
amazing
it more
journey.
eloquently than I did.
I don't know, man. So, Michael, tell me about Sentinel then. So, how are the responsibilities divided? Who are your teammates? How big is your team? Stuff like that.
Yeah,
The people.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sentinel Technologies, we're 40-plus-year-old organization. We started as IBM mainframe repair organization. Then we
Wow.
became a huge Cisco voice partner, and now we are your typical managed services, managed security provider, and we provide phenomenal service to our customers, and we're always trying to be leading for them and innovating with them.
Right.
And so, from a perspective of my team, so I report to our chief technology and innovation officer, and then we roll up under the sales and marketing department. So
Hmm.
technically, I'm in a sales role, even though I try to stay technical. And my team, I've got a team distributed throughout the U.S. and Canada. We basically tackle any sort of new innovative concepts. We figure out what customers need, what we think customers need. We
Hmm.
build product offerings and bring those to market with our 70 plus sellers nationally. And
Wow.
so we basically take things from the ground up, whether it's something that one of our partners has brought to us, whether it's
Hmm.
something we just think we need as a addition to one of our existing practices, or it's something completely brand new like artificial intelligence.
Nice. Nice. So, as an MSSP, Michael, you would have a very unique perspective of looking at both the demand side and the supply side. Right, you're talking to customers and looking at the real world problems, but you're also talking to partners trying to gauge their ability and like finding products that fit well in together to serve a customer problem. So the question is, are there any partners or are there any services or products that are frequently bundled up together in order to serve the customers?
Yeah, it's a big conversation right now in security of almost this debate of, do I go with best of breed versus consolidated platform?
Correct.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things we've seen over the last few years is Microsoft's just come forward as a massive security partner.
Absolutely,
It,
yeah.
yeah, the Defender's product suite, they've got a portfolio from identity control and governance all the way through endpoint that's just really impressive. And I'd say that's one of the areas we're seeing for clients that do want that consolidation path. They're
Hmm.
definitely leaning towards, hey, do I already own this with Microsoft?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
And most of the time it's yes. And so we've got phenomenal partners though, like from Cisco, Darktrace. We've got tons of security partners
Hmm.
that we integrate with, and I think that's the big thing we notice too is on the managed security side
Hmm.
is being able to correlate that and being able to have teams make that insight actionable when you do go best of breed. That's
Hmm.
our Fortis by Sentinel team is
Hmm.
our security operations team, and our active defense offering is our correlation engine for all of those different solutions. And it's still invaluable just because we sort of brand it as SOC as a partnership, sort
Nice.
of under the perspective of if you install security cameras but you don't monitor them to make sure that they aren't fogging up or that they're actually not pointed
Yeah.
in the right direction at your doors and stuff, like if
Hmm.
somebody's not watching them, great, you
What's the
put in
point?
all this
Hmm.
technology for no real value.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that partnership is let's make sure you get the value out of the technology you buy.
That's a great analogy, Michael. Yeah, I'm going to use that. All right. So with that, can I request you for a demo, Michael? Can you take us through the platform? See, let me see how Sentinel works.
Yeah, so I'll definitely share. So this is an open source solution called Maester.
Hmm.
And so Maester was a solution released in April, is when it was announced at the PowerShell Summit.
Hmm.
Merrill was there. Merrill's a product manager at Microsoft out of Australia, and he's just phenomenal in his skill set. And so what I'll do, I'll just bring over here, share my screen.
Hmm.
And awesome. So what we have here is an O365 tenant,
Hmm.
Microsoft 365 tenant. So this is just a lab environment. There's some example data in here, but more or less, this is a baseline tenant. This is what you get if you go sign up with a credit card or sign up through a partner. You've got access to all these tools that you may or may not fully understand or fully understand how to integrate and enable. All right, so we'll go through just a quick example of how to get started with Maester. So just install module Maester. Then once you have a folder where you want Maester to be able to do all the analysis in, we install Maester tests. And this downloads an entire list of tests that the community is actively updating. So
Nice.
it's not only the Enter ID security baseline configurations that Thomas and Fabian work on, but it's also a bunch of built-in module or bunch of built-in tests that Merrill and Fabian and Thomas have made that are around just Maester specific look perspective on O365. And then we've also been working to add in all of the cybersecurity and infrastructure security agency, CISA's scuba gear tests and controls. So, scuba gear, if you're a state local government agency, that's something that CISA is highly recommending you align to, and it's a control baseline that's super valuable.
Okay.
So, once we've installed everything, we connect Maester. And then once we're connected, we just invoke. And
Wow.
so this goes through. Yeah, gotta love the ASCII background text, right?
It's been a while since I've seen some good ASCII art.
Yep. And so this is essentially going out through the Graph API. We've got a few other integrations now and querying your environment and just saying, hey, what is the current security state of this? And ultimately, this security as code concept has been around for a while, but starting to apply these DevOps constructs into a SaaS environment is extremely valuable now because we can start to have more agility and more control over these environments, be able to be more rapid in our changes and more controlled in our changes. And so something like this, we've seen individuals running it regularly, like weekly, monthly, just, hey, anytime there's a major change from the audit log, let's run another security baseline and see did anything negative happen from that change. And so this is something we're even considering at Sentinel. How do we bring this to more customers faster and easier? Because this isn't by any means challenging technically, but
No.
to get all of these components set up, make sure that they're continuously running, make sure that it's actually valuable insights. There's effort there and there's management
Hmm.
that's needed. And so that's where we come in, is we're looking at how to make that a little bit more accessible even for the broader base. But you can see it's running through. I, I think we've got, gosh, 100 controls now, little over it. Yeah, so we can see
Wow.
here it ran 51 tests. Of those, 57 or 51 passed, 57 failed, and then 16 were skipped. So about 100 and what is that, 20 roughly?
Yeah.
Awesome. And so
108, 124.
yeah, and so beautiful 129, yeah. So it's a beautiful report here, and this is one of the things that drew me to what Merrill and Fabian and Thomas had built was like not only did they have a really cool technology solution that they made open source, they figured out a way to communicate and market that solution.
Right.
Because oftentimes you see security tools and they're very technical, they're overwhelmingly technical, versus
Yeah.
this where it's like, yeah, here's what you need to know.
Yeah.
And then if we get into these, like, it's helpful to understand too the context. Like, hey, I failed.
Hmm.
Great. Tell me why. And how can I fix it? And so that's something that recently the community has helped out in large too, is they've helped go through a lot of these tests and actually add proper deep links. So like if we go into, hey, a notification should be sent when to administrators when high risk users are detected. And so, great, we know exactly, hey, these are the users who will be notified when risky logins happen. And if we
Ah,
click on any of these users, we're actually able to see it takes
get
us
mail.
right to that user identity and how
Oh.
we'd configure it if we want to change it. So being able to put these pieces together, being able to make this a little easier is really valuable as we get into this. And then having the context of just, hey, why should we be doing this? What's the reasoning? And how can we fix this? So
Hmm.
100% this is really like where it started to click for me of like, wow, this is a cool open source project. How can we do more with it?
Hmm. It's like it's too comprehensive, and at the same time, it just looks very simple. That
Yep.
can't be easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, I give so much credit to Merrill, and obviously he's a phenomenal product manager because like this is beautiful. Like from a technology standpoint, when I see this, I'm like, wow, I'm really bad at user experience design, and like obviously there's people better than me because he was able to whip this up pretty quick. So,
This is so clean. I mean, like, it looks like it's a very fun report. It was all dark and gloomy when you were sending out all those commands in the PowerShell, but now it's
yep,
it's, it's nice. I mean, it's nice and sunny. Okay, this is what I need to do.
yep.
All right.
Yeah, and something we've recently worked on, even given community feedback in the GitHub repository, is hey, it would be great to know why this skipped. Like,
Hmm.
hey, you're skipping a ton of tests because there's a lot of different reasons. It may be you're not licensed for that functionality, or you may
Yeah.
not be actively connected and able to even for us to query that functionality to see if it's enabled. And
Right.
so community feedback was like, hey, tell us why this was skipped. And that's something that probably in the next couple weeks here, you'll see get added into the repository as we'll give you an actual reason. This is why it was skipped.
Oh, all right. Nice. What
So
else is
it's
on the? Yeah. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say it's actively being worked on, and the team that's collaborating. I think Merrill recently posted it on social that it was up to like probably 2 dozen individuals who have done pull requests on the repository for Maester so far.
Nice. Nice. So, what else is on the roadmap for you guys? Mike.
Yeah, something I've been personally working on and how I got involved with Merrill, Fabian, and Thomas was really around the CISA scuba controls and
Mm-hmm.
mapping those. So CISA does publish their own controls. They do have their own tool called Scuba Gear for
Mm-hmm.
analysis. and one of the things, it's super valuable, it's good context, and it's things that a lot of agencies and organizations in the commercial sector should be looking at.
Mhm.
And so mapping those into this sort of delivery framework that is
Challenging.
a little less overwhelming when you get into it. Like we ran 4 commands and we got an HTML report, and that's what we wanted to get to, or I wanted to get to. And so they've got controls for pretty much every M365 product, and so that's what I'm currently working on, is trying to figure out, great, how do we do this same experience with Exchange Online? What about Defender for Office? What about Defender for Endpoint? So they've
Nice.
got, I think they've got around 100 something controls just themselves that we probably
Wow.
only mapped 20 or so into.
Hmm. Mike, I mean, there must be a lot of information that you're consuming to stay on top of the game, right? I mean, like, what is your information consumption pattern like? Where do you get, like, how do you stay on top of it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when it comes
Yeah,
to
I think,
security? Yeah.
yeah, a lot of staying on top of it is, thankfully, a lot of our clients do ask really challenging questions or have really unique scenarios. So
Hmm.
oftentimes, if I'm not already researching it because someone else has run into it, it usually
Hmm.
becomes like a pattern I'm seeing that maybe isn't a pain point for a client yet, but is something
Right.
where I'm like, okay, other people are going to have this issue, and I need
Hmm.
to be more informed about it and be able to handle it better. And I'd say that's probably a lot of it, is just really trying to stay ahead of what's going to be the next big issue. So whether that's, yeah, understanding, hey, how does this new software work? How does this new feature work in the software that just got released? Um, what is this new product that everyone's talking about? A good anecdotal like story there is, with Darktrace. So Darktrace is a network security monitoring product
Right.
that we're a partner with. And our relationship with them started really because our penetration testing team was like, they went into 2 or 3 accounts and they kept getting caught. And they're like, we never get caught. And they're like, what product are you using? And they're like, Darktrace. And we're like,
Hmm.
we need to be selling that product to our customers. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
things like that of just, there's something phenomenal out there. It's how do you find it? How do you figure out what the value is and make sure that that value gets delivered?
Hmm. All right, Mike. Uh, there must be a lot of forums, like you mentioned, that you're going to in order to discuss some of the concepts and try to understand what, like, so you talk to your customers, you talk to people who are enthusiasts and researchers in the same space as you. So you have very unique information, like if that not a lot of people would hold within the world, right? Are there some predictions that you can make, especially with AI in the mix, right? I mean, like everything, there's so much, like the possibilities are endless right now, truly are, right? Are there any predictions that you can make right now? Like, 5 years or 10 years, this is something that I see happening.
I think we will definitely see the perspective on AI change. I think it came out, large language models provided this solution to a problem we haven't well defined yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we define that problem better, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to see the ability, the capability, and the benefit of those solutions really start to flourish. Like, I truly believe we're just at the tip of this iceberg with artificial intelligence and the broader sense of machine learning and statistical analysis and any sort of inference technology that is finally being applied in a way that's more accessible. I think what we've seen is a lot of these concepts have been around for years. but
Right.
they've been either prohibitively expensive or
Hmm.
the concepts and the technology behind them are prohibitively complex in the sense that you had to have data scientists to even
Right.
begin to touch this.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to be able to do pattern recognition very quickly, literally for free
Yeah.
with some of these models. So I think as we start to really grasp with how monumental that value is, we'll start to really understand where we can get the most benefit from that solution. And I think that's what we're grappling with a lot right now is we're going to see AI chatbots as just the easy answer of like, yeah, that's a great solution.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what if we take a minute and actually think, where can we apply this?
Yeah. Yeah.
We a good example of that is my boss was talking with one of our clients who's a healthcare system, and they were talking about how do we use this as an additional layer to review medical imaging for potential risks, like
Hmm.
maybe it's cancer, maybe it's uh, different types of just complex conditions that
Right.
yeah, we've got reviews and we've got peer reviews by medical experts, but if we add a third layer in there and that third layer just brings it to the attention of, again, a medical expert, like it's just another layer of potential prevention that
Right.
we don't have today. And
Hmm.
there's a whole uh, privacy and security and control and governance aspect. NIST had a session yesterday where they had a bunch of panels about data governance, and it's a huge topic. Is
Right.
how do we ensure any sort of security and privacy with this, and that is important. So there's no question. I think as we start to see these technologies really become applied, we're going to see, okay, this is the benefit, and here's how we do it responsibly.
All right. Well said. So on that note, Mike, let me take this opportunity to wrap this up. But before that, can you tell our viewers and listeners how can they reach out to you?
Yeah, easiest way is LinkedIn. So Mike Soule on LinkedIn, and that's honestly the best place to find me. Always happy to talk, always happy to chat. If you've got questions, I'm happy to help. So
I can vouch for that. Thanks, Mike. Thanks a lot. An absolute pleasure.
appreciate it.